Comes to mind is I'm proud and I'm also grateful. Uh, Proud of who has come after us and the awesome work that they're doing. To recognize Fawaz, him reaching out to me, he sent me his research paper.
Yeah.
I like scanned through it. That's awesome. Like, keep doing that. And do that in even a bigger way. Reach out to the person who is a known expert in that field. I did that with a research paper that I wrote in undergrad. And I reached out to Carly Urban. Hey, can you give me feedback on this paper? And she did. She met with me.
All right. Welcome to Economics with Dr. A. I'm your host, Dr. Abdullah Albrani, Associate Dean and Professor of Economics at the Hale College of Business at Northern Kentucky University. So we took a little break, but we're excited to be back. We have a great lineup for you for the fall semester. Today we have Matt Frey on the show. We're talking about early career advice and how to navigate that transition from college to being a productive team member at any organization. Matt is a Hale Fellow, a former research assistant of mine, and a graduate of NKU. He was also vice president of SGA while here at NKU. After graduation, he moved on to graduate school at George Washington University, where he completed his master's in economics. He also served as a graduate research assistant at GFLEC, which is the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center, and worked under the supervision of Anna Maria Lasardi. After graduation, he became the executive director of the Kentucky Financial Empowerment Commission. He worked to increase access to quality financial literacy education in the Commonwealth. He then became the communication director for Treasurer Allison Ball. He is now the executive director of state government audits and technology in Auditor Allison Ball's office. Matt, that was a fantastic introduction, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was great. I appreciated it. I'm trying to keep my face from getting too red. So I'm doing what I can to minimize. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, you've worked really hard to earn that introduction, and I'm happy to be able to make that introduction. So we're excited to have you on the podcast today, and our goal is really an important conversation that you and I had when you were a student here at the Hale College of Business, but many times over as you transitioned throughout your career, and now you're in the position to give advice to our current fellows and our current students at the Hale College of Business and anybody that's listening to this, which is an important topic. How do you actually transition? And, what are the qualities that we need to look into developing our skills, our ability to navigate this difficult time? And it could be difficult because of all the uncertainty associated with it. So I'm going to start off really simple. What advice do you have for people transitioning from college to career?
Yeah, it's an important question, and it is not a like super simple or straightforward answer when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it. But that shouldn't discourage anyone. I think that the process breaks down in two parts. On one hand, you have the application process. You've got to make that transition, right? So you've got to sit down, apply for jobs, figure out what that looks like for you. And then once you get into your job, you have got to sit down and do the work and go from there and really invest. When it comes to the job application process, I think something that I learned throughout my career in economics, and that it only becomes further cemented by my time on the hiring side, is that you you have to understand that the labor market is always changing. And so the labor market when I applied was it was the fall of 2020 going into the winter to spring of 2021. COVID was happening. We had a really strong labor market. The unemployment rate was around 3.5% or so at the time. But then COVID happened, and then it was like, what's going on here? And people were kind of waiting for another shoe to drop in the positive or negative direction. So I kind of had to navigate that on, what do I need to do to be successful in this job market? I'm excited to go into details on that. The skinny of it was I applied for a series of careers that I thought I would be really excited about and successful in. And I tracked everything. And I have a blog post I'm super proud of that I still hear about to this day, I think because of you,
Yeah.
Dr. A. But then so I tracked everything. And then when I made that career transition, I just was really eager and content sitting down and doing the work.
Yeah. And I appreciate you one writing that blog post. And yes, I've shared it with many people, and I'll tell you why I've shared it in a bit. But before we get to that, I really like how you split the success in a career into two different buckets. And I want to use that framework, the application process. So right now, I'm seeing so many early career individuals who are in the position that you were in, with a master's degree, and they know internally that they will be really good employees and productive employees, yet they're having such a hard time in the job market searching for a job. And it's economics, information asymmetry.
Yep.
You're a fantastic person, but the other side cannot tell from a resume. So how do we minimize that information asymmetry during the application process? And are there ways where you could signal your quality a little bit more clearly, either based on your experience or now as your experience as on the hiring side?
Yeah. So I think there are two ways to go about that.
Mhm.
I would say that, or at least I have two pieces of advice on that. There's kind of a passive approach, and then there's an active approach. The passive approach can be summed up in networking is the seed you plant for tomorrow.
Mhm.
That is something that I told myself all the time. When I was in graduate school, the research center I worked at collaborated with FINRA, the Financial Industry National Regulatory Authority. They do all the licensing for the Series 66 and other securities related exams. And I built a strong connection with a researcher there because when I went to grad school, I was like, oh my gosh, my program's only like 3 semesters and a summer long. I got to go now. And so I invested in that relationship with the individual there because I had touch points with my work and him.
Mhm.
I was able to get 4 different job interviews where
Yeah.
I got really close on one offer and I got an offer on another. I ended up not going with it.
Mhm.
And I could tell you some other stories that are similar to that, but all to prove the point of like I went to that individual to just build a relationship and not looking for anything. And then a year and more later, after he had worked with me, after he gotten to know me, he had like, I know Matt, he does a good
Yeah.
job. I would be willing to recommend him for a job in my office, but also in other departments as well. And so you have to invest in networking now. I know that sometimes we don't love it, but and trust me, like as extroverted as I come off, I get tired too, and that's only human. And so you got to invest in that passive approach of that person you meet your sophomore year or the first, whenever it is, to where that could turn around and benefit you from, in the long run. And
Yeah.
then the more active approach about it is where you're going out and meeting people
Mhm.
to figure out what is available out there, to introduce yourself, to show them the personal side of yourself. The way that I've heard it framed as is you can do informational interviews
Mhm.
where when I grow up one day, I want to be the GM. I want to be the general manager of the Cincinnati Reds. Well, I see this kind of path towards that, where people have been successful at that job, have taken step 1, 2, and 3. Let me meet someone who's at step 2 and go from there.
Mhm.
And so I think you have to be investing in networking to where investing networking is the seed that you reap the benefits of down the road. But then also with the active approach of talking to people who are doing the thing you want to do one day will
Yeah.
put you in a place to succeed. And I think that is a really good way on being successful in the job market.
Yeah.
Not to mention, just scanning uh, the job applications on LinkedIn or wherever it is, and being relentless on the
Yeah.
application side.
So this is really valuable, and I love it. And we're going to dig a little deeper over here
Mm-hmm.
because um, you're giving us the what you should do, but the issue that I see a lot of people struggling is how do you actually do it, right? And then there's
Sure.
doing it, and then there's being authentic while you do it. And Matt, something that I like about you, and I need to tell the audience about this, is you're a strategist, right? you and Matt and the fellows from 2018, 2019, we have a book club going, and we're reading on the Edge by Nate Silver. And you know, Matt is a tactical person, a strategist. He thinks 3, 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. And one thing that I recognize working with current students is that strategic ability might not exist, and I don't know how to advise people how to develop it. So, from your perspective, how do you go about being a networker in a strategic way that is authentic as well?
Yeah, I think a mantra for life, and it's cliche, but it's be yourself. You're not going to be successful in your career if you are increasingly not acting the way that you would normally, right? And it's not to ignore the like time and place of things. Like there's being professional and then there's being social with friends.
Hmm.
But there's also just being yourself in the workplace and your personality shining. And maybe your personality is that strategic or that creative, right? And you let that shine through. So don't like hide that
Hmm.
from yourself. But I think the way to try and look at things is to try and break down the steps. And sometimes it can be difficult to do that going forward, but to build that muscle going forward, maybe it's helpful to look backwards.
Hmm.
Why was I a successful applicant for the to be a Hale Fellow?
Yeah.
Well, I took initiative. I came up to Dr. A after class and I talked to him. I was persistent in following up. I was enthusiastic about a project. I was timely in getting things done. Well, you can apply the same steps
Hmm.
to whatever it may be. And so let's say you want to be an analyst or a data scientist at 8451. Well, a successful analyst there, someone who's in that job right now, entry level, just started this, past June, they probably have really extensive data science skills or they thought about different sorts of data sets. How
Hmm.
can I prepare a project to put myself in that position to be successful like them? How does a project align with the environment I'm in presently? Well, I know Dr. A needs research assistant help, and I could go and brag about that as the project that I worked on that can be a line on my resume for when I apply for that internship that is at 8451 or the internship before the time I get that job at 8451, right? And so I think you have to look at how you can create opportunities to make decisions
Yeah.
that the person in the seat you want to be in would be making.
Yeah. So I'm going to share a tip over here on how to work backwards if it's not your own life. Find the person that is in the position that you want to be in, creep on their LinkedIn, see what their progress was. How did they end up there? One thing in academia that we have is everybody has their CVs out there. So I follow how people's CVs have grown and how they've progressed. If I want to be somewhere, there is a path. Somebody's done it before. Follow that path, and then that person that you are looking at that you one day want to be in their position, reach out to them, right?
Absolutely.
And Fawaz has joined our podcast as well. And Matt and Fawaz have a similar trait, and that trait is this audacity to reach out to people. And not everybody has that confidence to reach out to people, but so
Cool.
Fawaz and Matt have this specific trait, and that specific trait is they have the audacity to reach out to people and ask them for advice, and I admire that. But it's surprising how many people hold themselves back from asking for that advice. I mean, Matt and our work together really started with Matt stopping by my office after class and saying, you know what? I don't know what it is you do, but I want to work with you. That
Yeah.
was it. I mean, that is
Yeah. No, it was.
audacious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history. So, all right. So networking is something that you focus on, and being your genuine self. Um, let's say you've gotten the job, what's your day one? What do you do, Matt, on your first day of the job or going into your first day? What's the approach?
Yeah, so I think that like this might sound a little bold.
Mhm.
This might sound um, like I am like a little over prepare or something like that. But I think the fact of the matter is, if it can be done, people out there are probably doing it.
Mhm.
And so the first job that I had was I was the executive director of a nonprofit. And
Mhm.
so I had to come in with a strategic plan. And so day one couldn't be okay, let's get settled into this. It was let's go.
Yep.
And I would like to think you can apply the same strategic thinking and have the same level of forethought to to any job,
Mhm.
where you can figure out, okay, these are the things I'm going to be working on, because they gave you an onboarding plan, and
Yeah.
how you're going to be investing that time, right? And so the skinny of it is, I think you got to go into day one with a plan of attack. And so if you are going to be an analyst at a data science related company or a consulting firm, um, you have networked with the right people going into that, whether it be through the interview process, which doesn't come off as networking, but you're building those connections with people, or you've done the informational interviews like Dr. A and I have mentioned thus far in the podcast, where you can get a sense of what it takes to be successful at that position. So whether it's reading a book or preparing more on the skills side of thing, like invest in that so you're ready to go and hit the ground running on day one. Not to mention like the college application process, the college process, the job application process can be a slog. So like you don't have to be Superman. Please
Mhm.
take time for yourself, but you can be successful going into day one. But
Yeah.
once it gets to day one, I think you have to be really intentional and really disciplined with your time. You will find that if you sit down and do the work, you put your head down, you're drama free, you show up prepared, genuinely prepared to every meeting,
Mhm.
people will notice that more than everything,
Yeah.
no more than anything. And you will begin to get included in more meetings. And I think I'd also add, it's important to be eager and willing to say yes to opportunities. And I'm personally of the opinion to leap without looking. Like,
Yeah.
let's do it and let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a rewarding approach, because people see that you are willing to help out, like wherever it is. Of course, you want to be known as the person who gets stuff done, and so be honest with your bandwidth
Yeah.
and the time you need to recharge, whatever that looks like. Everyone has a different approach, but I think willing to sit down and do the work and put up with just doing the work for a while, you'll find yourself included in more and more meetings. And I think that's just such a successful strategy. It sounds simple. It
Yeah.
sounds so boring, but I think sitting down and doing the work surprisingly is a surprisingly successful strategy. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not though, because it's boring.
Yeah. And the thing that I advise my students when they're going to an industry, and when you leave higher education and you're getting your first job, sometimes you might not have any idea about the industry. Uh, Listen to every podcast about the industry. Follow the people who are the loud social media folks in your industry. Follow, because you will find out that you'll be in the know on many new things that are happening, and that's value added.
Absolutely.
So don't show up on day one and be like, yeah, teach me everything about this industry. Between the offer and the arrival, to your job is to learn as much as you can about that industry and what's changing in the industry and the dynamics of it.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that is a way to become a strategic thinker too, to our like previous topic, where like if you work in banking, or like if you work in, let's just say you work in Cincinnati, maybe you work in investment banking in Cincinnati, maybe you work for Kroger, not to like keep going back to them for the
Hmm.
example, but like the Cincinnati Business Journal or Cincinnati Business Courier
Yeah.
or like Link NKY, if you just like go to those websites and read 3 articles a day, you can
Hmm.
start to put two and two together and figure out where things are headed,
Yeah.
right? And I think that can give you a really sense of like, oh, these are the kinds of decisions they are making and that can help you be more effective in your job, and it can help you relate to your manager. You can get an understanding of what they are thinking about. Just like to repeat myself, you want to put yourself in the position to like to to learn how to make decisions that your managers or decision makers or the person in the seat you want to be in is making, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And the other issue that I'm starting to see, and I would love to hear your advice on this, because sometimes I'm at that age where I get called the old guy. So I'm a big believer that you do the work, and there might be a lag between when you do the work and when you're compensated and recognized for it. Is this an old school mentality, or is this something that you would advise people to think about?
I agree with you. I think that it might be old school,
Hmm.
but I think there's a lot of truth to it. To add some maybe new school to it and to
Yeah.
borrow a phrase, you have to make sure you're telling your story.
Yeah.
When a piece of advice you gave me when I started my job at the Financial Empowerment Commission was write everything down you did week to
Yeah.
week. At the end of the week, write it all down so
Yeah.
that when you go to your manager, and in my case, when I went to the chief of staff at the Treasury at the time, I was like, "This is all the stuff I did." And they're like, "Whoa, okay."
Yeah.
And I think that is a good reflection time for you, but it's also an opportunity for you to share with them that you're making progress, and it helps that like you have a touch point to reference where you talk about progress with them. Not to mention that you can use social media to do
Yeah.
this in an appropriate way, respective of your industry and whatever norms and policies it might have. I think there are ways where you can sit down and do the work, but be humble and remind your manager or whoever it is that you talk to who might be a decision maker on that. And then also I'll extend it because we've talked a little bit about networking and planting the seed for tomorrow. Networking is the seed you plant for tomorrow, right? Like to continue to take informational interviews when you get into that new job, right?
Yeah.
Because there's because you can meet with someone, start building a relationship with them, but continue to work somewhere for 5 years. But you've gotten coffee with this person once every 3, 6, however many months, and they'll ask you about your job because because it's probably part of the mutual connection you have, and that's where you can say like, like, what are you working on, or what's interesting at the auditor's office right now. It's like,
Yeah.
well, let me tell you this like interesting thing that just came up, and that's an opportunity for you to brag about yourself there too.
Yeah. So as you were talking, I was thinking about another conversation that Fawaz and I have had recently, and that's the importance of going back and watering old seeds, if you may. And a lot of times people progress in their career, and they've developed a network, and after they don't quote unquote need that network, they never go back and engage it and maintain that relationship. And there's so many opportunities that I've had in life that have come from me going back and saying, "Hey, by the way, let me update you over the past 2 years. This is what I've been working on. And because of your advice and your contribution, this is what I'm doing today." I don't need anything from them, right?
Yeah,
But I'm going back to show them and share with them how much they have helped me through that process. And then it opens up new doors. They're like, "Oh, so you're doing that now? Let me connect you with somebody else." So my advice is to go back and nurture some old connections. And one way of doing that is just share what you're doing and your success. Everybody wants to know that they contributed to the success that you had. So give them ownership, right?
yeah,
Into that success.
100%. I don't think anyone's ever been upset being thanked,
Yeah.
and I think anyone can get excited about sharing in a story, participating in a story, sharing in someone's success, and to reach out and give someone that credit is awesome. I mean, and who doesn't like their day to be brightened a little
Yeah.
bit? And it doesn't have to be the craziest thing in the world. Keep it simple, stupid, right? That's
Yeah.
a very helpful mantra as well. And just like, hey, quick note, boom, send it out, and I think that would go a long way in planting that seed, maintaining, going back and nurturing old ones as well.
Yeah. And to make this relevant to our college students that are listening, one way that I see this actually playing out is faculty get a lot of requests to write recommendation letters for scholarships, new opportunities, and we oblige and we're happy to do that. But what happens less frequently is the applicant is less likely to report back what the outcome was. So, if somebody wrote a recommendation letter for you, whether it's a scholarship, new opportunity, follow up. Send them a
Yeah.
thank you card in the mail. And Matt, you're really good about that. Thanks for this opportunity, and it makes people more likely to support you in the future because they know recommendations are such a thankless job. So make sure to give back and build that.
Yeah.
Fawaz, you're laughing. Fawaz, why don't you jump on? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the process, like the process I am right now. Like
Mhm.
I'm asking for recommendation letters for graduate school and also like job applications. And I'm thinking I haven't sent a thank you note to either Dr. A or other and my other recommenders.
Yeah.
So I think I need to do that right now.
Yeah, schedule some time to nurture relationships. It needs to be part of your schedule, and it becomes then an authentic part of it, right? So I have a process where once a week I will send a message to somebody I haven't talked to, whether it's a former fellow, a Hale fellow, or hey, I came across this article, thought about you, thanks for everything you've done for the program. And I'm genuine about it. I really mean it, but I have to make sure that I'm scheduling it because it's so easy to forget or to push it as a secondary objective. It has to be a primary objective. Matt, what's your process to make sure that you're nurturing relationships?
Yeah, well, before I dive into that, just a quick example of a
Hmm.
like pro level of doing
Yeah.
that. I know someone who has a lot who is like at the executive level, president level, and will do a lot of in person interviews. And
Hmm.
what he does is he pre-writes the thank you letter, like the first two sentences of it, and he has it in the envelope, goes and does the interview. And then as soon as he's finished with the interview, he sits right outside the office or in a place where he's kind of like tucked away and finishes writing the thank you letter, goes back into the office and drops it off, and then he
Hmm.
leaves.
Yeah. You know who else does this? Exact
Who?
same thing. Mrs. A, Jenny
Yeah.
Albarani. She, I went to a couple of meetings with her, and she would walk out of the house with the thank you cards, and I'm like, this is just super being too proactive about it, but it works because you don't forget it. Then it's part of the
Yep.
process.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's a
Exactly.
pro tip. It's a bar that I might not be able to approach or attain, but it's a good goal to have.
Yeah. I think that it's always helpful to know like people that are doing something in an exceptional way how they
Hmm.
do it in that
Yeah.
way. But to answer your question, the way that I do it is I try and have just touch points with people. I think you always have to be aware of the time that you're in your life. And right now, I don't have kids. I'm not in school. I have my job that preoccupies me during the week. But there are ways that I can leverage the time in my job and the time outside of my job, given those constraints that are actually pretty low
Hmm.
comparatively. Because having friends that have a more demanding job or have kids, that are just in different seasons of their life, it can be different. But I just try and leverage my job to have to circle back with people. If I enter in a new job, okay, how can I leverage that to learn more about what I'm going to be stepping into? Okay, hey, so and so, I know we haven't talked in a while. It's great to meet you at X.
Hmm.
I'm stepping into this new job and would just love to get your sense of things on this area because I know you've worked in it for a while. Um, I think that's a great way to do that. Something that has been like a really cool experience for me over the past few years is that different like group chats that I've been a
Hmm.
part of. There's a group chat with three of my buddies plus Dr. A that was kind of like it's a portion of the original Econ fellows, right?
Hmm.
And we'll throw links in there about econometrics, but we'll also throw links in there about the Wall Street Journal or something funny we saw
Yeah.
too. And then in another lane, more directly related to my job, I have a group chat with some people that work in state government. and
Hmm.
work in government affairs. And we'll talk about stuff related to our work, but we'll also talk about like a podcast we all listen to.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like a book club.
Yeah.
And but there's like no like demands to it. And we'll get together for lunch every
Hmm.
once in a while. And that can be really interesting because you get different people's perspectives on what's going on, right? And I think both of those experiences have like really enriched my like social life. Because like
Yeah.
I go and play golf with the guys that are in our Econ Fellows group chat, right?
Hmm.
But then I also go to tailgates with the people that are in that other group chat I mentioned.
Yeah.
And so you find ways to just connect with people
Yeah.
and build that relationship.
So this was not on my list of things to talk about, but this is a conversation that we've been struggling with here with the current Hail Fellows, and that is maintaining a lively group chat. A lot of people are consumers of group chats, the content, but don't feed it, right?
Sure.
Um, Fawaz is actually working on this. He has a group chat that we have, and he's always contributing, trying to get the conversation going. But a lot of people don't see the value of it. So, uh, what are good tips on how to throw new content into a group chat? What advice would you give us, Matt?
My general approach is always this group chat is about X. If I
Hmm.
see anything related to X, I'm
Hmm.
going to throw it in there. I
Okay.
keep it a simple rule of thumb like that. I think it is always helpful to add a piece of commentary with it.
Mm.
A like just like throwing an article in there, it's like, cool, what do you think about it though?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's always helpful to be like article, quote, takeaway, a quick
Hmm.
analysis, even if it's like this was funny or like I can't
Yeah.
believe they did this or whatever. And also like just to acknowledge like the spectrum of things in there. Like we send dumb videos in our
Yeah.
group chat, don't we, Dr. A? Well,
Yes.
like and so like there's room for that, but there's also room for the hey, look at this like tweet about the 10 latest econometrics papers. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, I missed my microeconometrics class. Like,
Yeah.
man, I actually do. I actually do miss that class. And so I think that you share something when you find it related, whether it be funny or serious, but always add some commentary, even if it, but always like engage too on the like engaging with the share, like even if
Hmm.
it's a thumbs up, like yeah, I saw that, like acknowledge. I
Yeah.
think that goes a long way as well.
Yeah. This turned into a conversation about how to develop community and maintain relationships, which anybody that's worked with me, that's kind of turned into my area of efforts, whether it's at the Hale College of Business or the Journal for Economics Teaching. And I had a newsletter about this a couple of days ago about identifying what you're good at. Everybody expects you to um, know it, but sometimes listening to the market to speak economic terms. What are people asking you to do? Or how are they involving you in situations? And what responsibilities are they giving you is a good indication of what value they see you providing. So when you're starting your career, your boss at first is going to give you some tasks, some goals, and then your responsibilities are going to slowly grow. See where they're growing because that is an indication of what they see your value is. And to loop back to a conversation earlier in the part of the conversation, just because your responsibilities grow does not mean that it's immediately going to be attached with a monetary or even a title raise.
Mm-hmm.
There, to speak economic terms, there's a lag between when you get the responsibility and then when you get the rewards of it. And I'm trying to actually build that into our Hale Fellows program moving forward because I've noticed that our graduates were, not just the Hale Fellows, but all graduates are expecting immediate recognition of the effort and the outcomes that they provide and want the salary immediately. So we got to build a little bit of that lag internally as well. Matt, we've talked about all the great things that you have done and the success you've had. As you look back, are there places where you're like, "Ooh, I played that card wrong," just to use the Nate Silver example?
Yeah,
And what lesson did you learn from that quote unquote mistake?
yeah, for sure. Like hindsight's 2020.
Hmm.
I'm extremely blessed to be in this position that I am, and it's there's like kind of there's kind of a mentality that walks around with a lot of students at NKU where it's like, I didn't get into that school, or
Mm-hmm.
like I'm here because of this. I mean, to put it like from a third party,
Yeah.
to give it to a third party, the Wall Street Journal just ranked NKU at 29th
Mm-hmm.
in best value colleges in America. No
Yes.
other Kentucky school was in the top 100. We were right behind this school that some people have heard of called Harvard.
Yeah.
And so like NQ is a tremendous place to be, and I'm grateful for being there because of the mentorship that I got there and the teaching that I
Mm-hmm.
got there. Like I came in with AP credits, and
Yeah.
so that enabled me to. I was a Spanish major at one point, but then I
Yeah.
was like, oh, like I'm gonna do econ and math and computer science. Awesome trio. And for all the people that are scared of math out there, I was not good at math going into
Mm-hmm.
college, but because NKU gave me that like those credits, and so I was ahead. Like I could have graduated in 3 years if I wanted to, but I graduated in four because I was given that flexibility by NKU because of them accepting AP credits and other
Mm-hmm.
things from my standardized test scores to where I was able to retrain myself on math. But to get back to the question, the thing that I wish I would have done more of at NKU is like study more. I think
Mm-hmm.
I overextended myself on the extracurriculars,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a little, maybe not hypocritical, but it's a little silly to say because I think one of the things that I am rewarded for in my job is
Mm-hmm.
are my leadership skills and my
Mm-hmm.
communication skills and emotional intelligence within my job, and my organizational skills. And I think I got a lot of that. I would attribute a lot of my success with those skills to the extracurriculars that I did. But I think that if I wish I had like just a tad more
Yeah.
academic success at NKU, even though I don't use math, computer science, or economics in explicit terms
Mm-hmm.
in my like day job.
Yeah.
That's like to put it just succinctly.
Mm-hmm.
I would focus on like being successful academically and then finding one or two clubs
Yeah.
that align with where you want to go in life. And I was in a fraternity, and so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that's out of the question, but don't like overextend yourself
Yeah.
into like five clubs. And I feel like that's kind of that happens a lot at NKU. And
Mm-hmm.
so that would be my advice well, that would be my hindsight bias would be to dive a little bit more into the academics.
Yeah.
Because I think that it could have benefited me in grad school, and in my work very specifically at like when I was a graduate research assistant.
Great. I appreciate you being honest about that. As you look at the fellows program, where it started, literally with you, Ben, Jacob. It was a small handful of individuals that were just doing this to learn more, and where you see it today. What's what are your thoughts? What feelings come up, or what goals do you have for this program?
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm proud and I'm also grateful. Uh, Proud of who has come after us
Mhm.
and the awesome work that they're doing. To recognize Fawaz, him reaching out to me, he sent me his research paper.
Yeah,
I like scanned through it. That's awesome. Like keep doing
yeah,
that. And do that in even a bigger way. Reach out to the person who is the like a known expert in that field. I did that
yeah,
in like with a research paper that I wrote in undergrad. And I reached out to Carly Urban, like, hey, can you give me feedback on this paper? And she did. She met with me.
yeah,
It was awesome. And she's like a rock star in the household finance field. Uh, so so super proud of who has come after us. But then I'm grateful to you, Dr. A, for seeing the value in the mentorship in the program and the process that you developed and giving that gift to others. And it's awesome to see it grow from what, honestly was like a pretty informal
yeah.
program. Like, because at first Jacob and I and Ben like didn't get paid,
No.
and it was new experience for you too, but we learned together on how to work with each other and learn better together. And then we eventually got paid.
Yeah.
And then look at it, it's the Hail Fellows. I was like, that sounds pretty sweet, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think I'm just proud and grateful of how far it's come. I'm proud of who's in it. I'm grateful for how you have stewarded the program. But the goals that I have for it is to continue to see success for it and continue to see it elevated and distinguish
Hmm.
students,
Yeah.
meaning like the program gets some more recognition because I think as time goes on, I'm biased, but I think that the people that come from the program are going to continue to be successful. I think you're going
Yeah.
to have a pretty solid hit rate, uh, and um, and so I would just love to see that continue in any way that I can be a part of that as being a part of the past, but how I can invest in the future. I want to be.
I really appreciate that, Matt. And it would not be where it is today without your investment. And while you were a student, and taking this risk of saying, "Hey, how do we develop this program, and how do we grow it?" But even now, years after, you're always giving back, and that is exactly what we need right now. Is our alumni giving back to our current students and opening up doors. And you're right. The most prideful moment of this is seeing the success of the alumni and or the current students. So Fawaz and Princess have just been accepted to the Chicago Fed Careers in Economics
No way.
program.
Awesome.
So that
Congratulations.
yes, so they're going to be presenting their research. Go ahead, Fawaz. You excited, Fawaz?
Yeah, I'm excited. I know. So I think the connection there was I made a connection out of the Chicago Fed poster session,
Hmm.
and that was because I'm interested in product positions at some institutions, and I think I went so they had like an information session, and that was where I met the recruiters. His name was Cox. Her name was Cox Dawn,
Hmm.
and I talked to her about the poster session, and that's how I made the connection there. And she sent an email saying we got accepted to the Chicago Fed.
So
Awesome.
October 17th, Fawaz and Princess are heading to Chicago to the Chicago Federal Reserve and going to be present their work and then attend the conference. And then the week after that, we're going to be at the Kentucky Economic Association in Frankfurt, Matt. So
Oh,
stop
sweet.
by. Yeah, stop by. We're going to be at Kentucky State University. And then the spring, we're going back to the Eastern Economic Association. This time it's again in New York, which you went with me last time it was in New York. And that was a life experience, would you say?
Oh yeah, that's a memory that I will hold dearly for a long time. Like the social experience of getting to just spend an abundant amount of time with my like cohort
Hmm.
members, like with Dakota and with Ty, but then also the opportunity to learn from other students who were presenting there and to see what they were learning and to see how it was the same thing. That's what we were learning at NKU was confidence giving. It gave so much confidence, and so
Yeah.
that is a special memory. I was so glad. Like that's the top memory
Yeah.
from my time at NKU.
It was a fantastic time. And given that experience, I'm always eager to take students to conferences so they can see that they belong in the space. So, Matt, this was a fantastic conversation. There's so much to learn about navigating life after college and into your first career. We would love to hear from you all. If there's anything that resonated from this conversation, anything that you would like for us to have more conversations around a specific topic, leave a comment, share this with friends and family members that would benefit from hearing this conversation. Transitioning into a career can involve a lot of uncertainty and um, create a feeling of unease. And we want to say that we recognize that there are ways for you to develop a community. We hope to be part of your community. So reach out to us if we could help. I know Matt is always available to answer, emails, questions. Uh, Fawaz and I are always happy to jump on calls if anybody would like to have a conversation. We currently host a monthly mentorship meeting. If you want to be added to that, I'll leave a comment with in the description how to sign up to be part of that mentorship program. Matt, any last parting words?
just to reiterate what you said, my door is literally open if you could see it, but it's also figuratively open as well. Please feel free to reach out to me on social media, LinkedIn, whatever is the easiest for you. Always happy to talk. And I mean, there's a call to action for everyone. We've talked about the value of informational interviews. Whether the person's directly in the industry you want to go to, or you think that they might just be a helpful guide, like reach out to someone, if it's me or if it's someone else, to do that informational interview just to learn about their experience. That's what I will part with.
Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate you being here. Once again, thanks for all of you for listening to Economics with Dr. A. Another call to action, I'm going to throw it out there because we've been gone for a while. If you're on LinkedIn, share this episode with your own takeaway. Tag us. We would love to leave comments and continue the discussion. So that's your call to action. Make a post on LinkedIn, tag us, share the link. See you all on the next episode of Economics with Dr. A. Have a good one.